Dear Mercy players, I feel your pain. There is no doubt that Mercy is the biggest name mentioned when it comes to being loved or hated in Overwatch. You either loved playing with her or you couldn't stand playing against her with not that much in between. As of recently, she has received some very harsh treatment from the Blizzard developers and the Overwatch community in general. Lately, there was a movement after her most recent nerf #ThrowForMercy. Clearly Mercy players are upset, and despite me not playing Mercy, I could definitely empathize with them in more than one way. Mercy's character is a large part of what her fanbase identifies with. She is caring, nurturing, and she cares about her team and only wants to heal. For God's sake, she's an advocate for world peace. Let that sink in. She wants world peace. Just throwing that out there. She's insanely intelligent and res 3 people in lore. I'm including Reaper, but that's kind of up in the air with the release of Moira, and I'm not sure if that's being confirmed or not, but anyway. Combine this with their big play potential and easy to approach kit is no brainer why she is popular as she is. Plus, just look at her. She's a beautiful woman with a snappy attitude, and God, look at her skins. Oh my God, so many nice skins. Now, Mercy has an attractive personality and had a fun kit. Keyword, had a fun kit. The days of being able to fly in and get a huge res saying heroes never die is long gone. She has gone through so many changes that she pretty much doesn't feel like Mercy to the Mercy fan base anymore. She's just been changed and nerfed so many times. She's just simply not the same hero. She's not the same Mercy that the fan base fell in love with. Let's rewind to a time before the rework. One argument against Mercy was that she was too frustrating and she was too strong for the 5-man res. Well, that pretty much wasn't true, because during the time the res was strong, yes, but she was nowhere near the best support. She was actually debatably the worst, especially with the release of Ana. During the early times of the competitive scene, Mercy was rarely picked outside of King of the Hill control maps, because even with the 5-man res, she was still considered weak compared to the likes of Lucio and Zenyatta, who mainly dominated that era. Trading? Debatably yes in some time, but it was a necessary thing to have in the game because it punished ult economy and bad target priority. At the start of season 2, she ended up getting a healing buff, which pretty much made it so if you didn't kill her, the fight would just continue on, so you pretty much had to kill her first. And if you didn't, she'll res the team and you'll get punished for it. But even then, when that happens, she would just get her team res and a whole bunch of other ultimates. I'm going to use a couple of examples. Say Reinhardt gets a 3-man Earth Shatter, just for simplicity's sake. Reinhardt gets a 3-man Earth Shatter, and it's comboed with Genji's Dragon Blade. So, there's everyone dead. Now, if you didn't kill Mercy, she'll res those 3. But what tends to happen is when Mercy res the 3, a grab from Zarya will come in literally immediately, almost instantly, suck everyone in, and then Pharah will bring down a barrage. Those kind of things will happen a lot when it came to the old Mercy. That's how you managed ults back then. Nowadays, at least when it comes to solo queue, and sometimes even in the Overwatch League, you kind of just throw your ults and pretty much everything at the kitchen sink at your opponent, and you can get away with it now. Versus having Mercy, where you couldn't get away with that. So having that threat there was very important for learning how to manage your ults well as a team. Throughout the time period before the rework, she was giving a healing buff and 2 to 3 res buffs actually. So that being said, the res itself wasn't all that strong back then. And even with all that, the res itself wasn't that good, because she will res, and by the time her teammates were able to even do anything, everybody was already dead or just sucked into another ult, as just mentioned. So even with the huge res potential, she was still a weaker support due to Ana and Lucio being so much stronger than her. Okay, so I would like to address the Overwatch League pros hate Mercy video because there are a few things that I found wrong with it, at least what they were saying.
You can't really punish people because like when you kill people, you're supposed to punish the enemy team for it. But like if you can res your team, it's like, oh, I have to try to re-kill you and like make you do the same mistake over again.
Especially if you play like his skin heroes like McCree, Widowmaker, like you get a pick with a nice headshot. Well, they have a rest, so it doesn't really matter, right?
I headshot somebody across the map and it was the most insane shot in the world or something, you know, doesn't even matter.
Okay, so I'm gonna address all these points at once. Because if you kill Mercy and she reses it, you still did something because you force her to get it on a 30-second cooldown. You're forcing her to use a res early before she wanted to, which means you have a 30-second window to take advantage of them not having res. And plus, on top of that, with the heroes that they mentioned, with McCree and Widowmaker, all the kills that they get, they didn't spend any resources. All they did was shoot them. They didn't ult, they didn't use any abilities, they just shot them. You spent no resource, so you made them spend a really long cooldown to bring someone back that you killed when you spent no resources at all except for maybe your positioning. So the fact that you're saying it doesn't mean anything is completely false.
Resurrection in a game, like a first-person shooter especially, it doesn't fit.
I mean, it works for Call of Duty, it works for Battlefield. Call of Duty had Second Chance in Black Ops 1 and Final Stand at Modern Warfare 2. Gears of War had res mechanics, assuming you weren't executed, a player could come by and revive you before you bled out. And Fortnite had mechanics like that. Or heck, even Battlefield 3, where someone would physically die, you just run with a defib and just say clear, and boom, they're revived. So why can't Mercy have that? It's been done in FPSs before.
I'd remove Mercy because Resurrection in a skill-based FPS game does not belong in Overwatch.
Now, this next point is more of an opinion. I feel like Mercy does belong in Overwatch because she's a strong component of the lore. She res 3 heroes, as I mentioned earlier. As I also mentioned earlier, she punished bad ult economies. So to prevent the ult spam strategy, a hero like Mercy was put in, and it also gave people a unique skill set to use. So she does belong in Overwatch. The dive comp pretty much came around the time Roadhog was nerfed, and it was rising. Jeff, in his own opinion, said the meta evolves and eventually, making dramatic changes just for the sake of doing it is bad for the game. 2 months later, he was buffed and being able to use Take a Breather while moving, and he hasn't been touched since. D.Va's defense matrix got a small tweak with its depletion, but in return, she got her regen buffed. I'm bringing up these examples because when a hero was nerfed, they got a small buff within the same patch or a later patch. Even with the most recent ones with Sombra, they took away her ult charge for health packs, but in return, her hack became stronger, being able to stop passive abilities, and her weapon spread was decreased. With D.Va, with all of her nerfs, she at least got rockets. And with Roadhog, again as mentioned, that he can use his Take a Breather while moving, and he takes a 50% damage reduction. But with Mercy, she just got nerfed and nerfed and nerfed, and there wasn't really anything given back to her. She wasn't really buffed at all, even with all the nerfs, so it feels kind of unfair based on Blizzard's previous history, and especially with the statement that Jeff said around the time Divecom was just arising. They said, oh, let the meta evolve, and yet they were in such a rush to nerf Mercy multiple times. It just seems unfair. The way the community treats Mercy players just adds to everything on top of that, especially with that super cringy video on the Overwatch League. I mean, come on, at least use an actual cosplayer. And on top of that, the mega threads in the Blizzard forums would just pretty much take every comment involving Mercy, put it into a mega thread. In most of cases, it was just ignored and deleted. You can even go to the forums right now, look at Mercy forums, and you can see everyone commenting saying, oh, you're not going to listen to this anyway. Pretty much everyone calling out Blizzard, and it's still being ignored to this day. I mean, think about it. Your hero gets nerfed 3 times over the course of 3 months, and during this period of time, you're giving ideas to them on the PTR and on the Blizzard forums on saying, oh hey, don't nerf Mercy, she's perfectly fine where she is, or hey, maybe try making Res an earned ability, or give players an option between Valkyrie or the old Maz Res, like so on and so forth. There were plenty of ideas for Blizzard to work with, but they ignored all of them, shoved them into a mega threat, and just nerfed her anyway, multiple times. And just in general, any of us would feel frustrated if our hero got nerfed multiple times. Because imagine the outcry if Genji's Swift Strike got increased to 10 seconds and there was no reset on kill or on his blade activation. Everyone would be pissed, especially Genji players, so that's how Mercy players feel. Mercy players had to deal with the nerfs and being forced to play a hero they feel is ruined character-wise and kit-wise, on top of the community saying all Mercy players are bad and salty. When I read comments on the Blizzard forums and YouTube, I see so many people saying Mercy players are just salty if they don't like the multiple changes when it's justifiable. If any of our favorite heroes got nerfed that way, as I mentioned before with Genji, they will feel the same way. The concept that Mercy players are bad and just get carried is completely untrue. Her kit is easy to pick up, but that doesn't mean she is the easiest to master. Now, there is this very false misconception that Mercy players are unskilled at the game, which is extremely wrong. I feel like Stylosa had it right when he says this.
If you play Mercy, you are not a bad player. You are a Mercy player, you're an Overwatch player. This is something everybody has got to get into their head. Most people like to get very aggressive towards Mercy players, or they'll blame them for the defeats or whatever. Like, they'll get very, very angry towards them because they see Mercy as a low skill hero.
And this point that he says is right on the money, as I mentioned earlier. If you get caught with the most playtime on Mercy, you will automatically be like forced to play her, and people will get very toxic towards you. There's also something Stylosa says later in this video that I highly agree with, because I feel like that's a huge part of the problem, especially among the pros.
So Mercy is a different character. She's an Overwatch character. Once you get it into your head that this is not CSGO, this is not Call of Duty, or insert any other kind of FPS game, everybody can play this game. There are different heroes that require different skill sets. You don't need 6 hit scan gods on your team. You need maybe 1, possibly 2, and then you need people who can play the other heroes, like your Genjis, like your tanks, like your other supports. It's a very diverse game.
Yeah, so combine the few points that I just made about this game is not Counter-Strike, this game is not any traditional FPS, the way that they're heard on the forums, and the way that they're treated within the community in general, in-game and out-of-game. It's no wonder why Mercy players feel upset, especially with these nerfs and how they're treated. Now here's a few clips from your Overwatch that goes over the other problems with nerfing Mercy, because I watched this video a while ago and it makes some really good points that can be explained better than me.
The first point that I want to highlight about making a character like Mercy much weaker. Or not even just weaker, but the knee-jerk reaction that a lot of players have against Mercy, that I just don't want this in my skillful FPS shooter game. But that's not what Overwatch is. In fact, I tried to stress that despite being incredibly competitive and esports minded myself, I think it's more important that Overwatch has more characters like Mercy, because there's so many more players that could be interested in Overwatch if it had less to do with aim. Even the easier characters in the game have quite a high mechanical cost, so with that being the case, characters that are more management focused are going to be a big welcome addition. And hey, Jeff Kaplan did say that the next hero is very needed, and if Moira was down that line of being a bit more mechanically light, maybe the next hero is going to be more strategical in nature, and that's what I personally think that Overwatch badly needs. It definitely was the case that Valk was overpowered, but the sentiment that I just don't want res or powerful abilities that don't take a lot of skill in the game is misplaced in Overwatch, I think. It definitely shouldn't be the case that you try to overpower these types of heroes, that they're very strong at the top tiers of competition, but at the same time, we shouldn't shun them as a community. We should welcome them and the flock of players that are maybe more unfamiliar with FPS games that it brings into our community.
Yeah, he brings up excellent points on how Mercy players are treated, and we need more heroes like Mercy who are more strategic, say like Symmetra, versus everyone who just needs like super high mechanics and aim in order to do well. Overwatch is not a game for that. There's plenty of heroes you don't need god tier aim to use, and those heroes should not be shunned. They should just not be shamed for playing them. It's not right. And he also brings up a point that I kind of touched on earlier when he brought up mid-tier players, because when it comes to the Mercy argument, only very high tier players are brought up, and the mid-tier players, say from like plat and below, are ignored.
And what it comes down to is sort of a problematic issue of worrying about Valkyrie being too strong at the higher levels of play, because I think there's a lot of mid-tier players in matchmaking that are really benefiting and enjoying the Mercy meta, how it works on every side and every role. It gives DPS players an extra chance to get in there, champ, and puts a lot of the game into the support's hands. Whereas in previous metas, players that are trying to play support are just getting rolled over by mechanical strength DPS classes that can just W-mouse one towards them. Whereas I think this Mercy meta has been a bit of a renaissance and a comeback for those players that are looking to control the game of Overwatch in a non-standard way. They don't want to have to shoot their way to victory. They'd like to influence the game with a support style, and when characters like Mercy are weak in the meta, it requires you to play like Lucio, Zen, and Ana, which are just FPS characters in general. They're nowhere near close to like an ability management character that Mercy and Moira kind of are.
And I fully agree with the statement, because I feel like if there were less mechanic heavy heroes, then it'll bring newcomers to the genre, and it'll also bring a unique twist to the meta. Instead of just trying to shoot each other, there'll be more strategic decisions with their abilities, which I feel like is needed in Overwatch, especially now. I decided to make this video because the Mercy fanbase have been really mistreated. They don't get as much credit as they deserve, and I feel their feelings towards the rework and towards all the nerfs in general are completely justifiable. If you like the video, remember to like and share, and if you know any Mercy players, show them this video. And also don't forget to subscribe. Until your next click, I'm out of here.